Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I am Jonathan Claudio, and today I will be discussing about the item analysis. So, I know that the words item analysis have rang a bell in your memory, and that is probably because during our high school days, right after our periodical test, the teacher will say, okay, let's do an item analysis. So, this is what that was. Yung item analysis na sinasabi ng teacher natin noon na binibilang kung ilan yung tama sa isang item, ito yun. So, in this video, I will be explaining to you what item analysis is, what the benefits of item analysis are, and what is the process of doing an item analysis as well as the importance of doing an item analysis. So, without further ado, let us begin. So, what is item analysis? Item analysis is the process of evaluating an item in the test. Here we are going to be evaluating the effectiveness of an item. So gaano ba siya ka-effective? Naintindihan ba ng students? Masyado bang mahirap yung tanong? Masyado bang madali yung tanong? May mali ba sa tanong? Gaano ba ka-effective yung tanong? Naintindihan ba ng students? So yun ang yun ang i-examine natin, yun ang i-determine natin, at yun ang i-analyze natin sa item analysis. So, proceeding on with the next slide, here are the benefits of doing an item analysis or performing an item analysis. Number 1, it determines how difficult an item is, because an item should not be too difficult nor too easy for the student. So, kailangan ma-determine natin, kasi kung masyadong mahirap yung tanong, kailangan nating baguhin. Kung masyadong madali yung tanong, kailangan nating baguhin. The item should be just right for the skill, for the knowledge, and for the capability of the student. So, number 2, it determines how high and low performers do in an item. Kasi, sa isang exam, right after makuha yung scores, may kinukuha tayong tinatawag natin na high performers and low performers. Like for example, in America, di ba meron silang grading na A+, A negative. So, usually, those are what we consider as high performers. And yung mga mababa ang score, yun ang kinoconsider natin na low performers. But here in the Philippines, kung sino yung mga highest, yun yung tinatawag natin na high performers. So, kailangan ma-determine natin kung paano ba nag-perform. Kung halimbawa, sa item number 1, yung mga high performers ay tumama sa item number 1, and then yung low performers naman natin ay mali sa number 1. So, kailangan ma-determine natin yun, because determining how high and low performers do in an item as well as the difficulty of an item will result to the third benefit of doing an item analysis, which is opens an opportunity for educators to revise the item. Kasi nga, as I've said, pagka masyadong mahirap yung tanong or kung masyadong madali yung tanong, kailangan nating i-revise, kailangan nating i-edit, kailangan nating baguhin. As well as pagka yung high performers lang natin yung tama sa item number 1 at mali yung mga low performers, there must be something wrong with the item. So, we must resolve that issue. We must resolve that difficulty in the item. So, that is the third benefit of doing an item analysis. It opens an opportunity for educators to revise the item. So, proceeding on with the next slide, here are the basic concepts of item analysis. Number 1, the item difficulty. So, as I've said earlier, kailangan yung item difficulty ay is not too difficult and it is not too easy. It must be just right. So, number 2, item discrimination. Actually, ito rin yung number 2 sa last slide natin. Kasi nga, yung sinabi ko kanina na pagka yung high performers natin ay tama sa item number 1, and then yung mga low performers natin ay mali, there must be an item discrimination in that item. For example, let's say that an examination takes place in Spain. So, naturally, yung mga tanong doon, karamihan ay nasa wikang Espanyol. For example, may mga Filipino, may mga American na nag-take ng examination doon. So, maski alam nila yung sagot, kung hindi naman nila maintindihan yung tanong, mamamali pa rin sila. So, yun yung tinatawag natin na item discrimination. Merong nadi-discriminate for certain barriers or for certain reasons. So, kailangan ma-determine natin kung ano ba yung nagiging cause ng discrimination. And finally, the effectiveness of the alternative. So given those basic concepts in item analysis, let us now proceed. How to determine if an item is difficult or not? So naturally, pagka majority of the examinees ay tumama sa item, then that means na yung item na yon ay madali or it is easy. But if the majority of the examinees are wrong in an item, then most probably that item is difficult. But moreover, meron tayong process na gagawin para malaman natin kung yung item ba ay madali or mahirap, but I will discuss that later on in this video. So, however, an item can discriminate if higher group answered more items correctly than the lower group. So, ito nga yung sinasabi ko kanina. Pagka sa mga item, ang madalas na tumama ay yung mga higher group or yung mga high performers natin, and then parati namang mali yung mga low performers natin, then that will constitute a discrimination in the item or in the items. So, kailangan ma-determine natin yun to be able to resolve it. So, proceeding on with the next slide, here are the 4 steps in computing the item difficulty. So, number 1, get the scores of each learner and arrange the scores from highest to lowest. So, for example, ayan yung ating yung tally nung mga item natin. Ito yung raw tally. So, kailangan i-arrange mo yan from highest to lowest. So, proceeding on with the next slide, step 1.2. Obtain the upper and lower 27% of the group. So, paano mo naman ma-determine yung higher and lower 27% of the group? So, kailangan i-multiply mo yung total ng examinees sa 0.27 or sa 0.27. In this case, ang examinees natin ay 10. So, 10 multiplied by 0.27 is equal to 2.7. So, rounding that up, ibig sabihin, ang value nun ay, ang value ng upper and lower performers natin ay 3. So, yung tatlong highest, yun yung tinatawag natin na group of high performers or yung higher or yung upper performers. However, yung 3 lowest naman natin, yun ang tatawagin natin na low performers or yung lower group. So, proceeding on with, dito naman sa example natin, yung top 3 students natin is student 2, 5, and 9. Tapos, yung namang bottom students natin ay si 7, 8, and number 4. Tapos, yung matitira doon, yung hindi nabanggit, yung hindi kasali sa upper and lower group, hindi na sila kasama sa magiging computation natin or hindi na sila kasama sa process ng item analysis natin dahil ang kailangan lang naman natin is yung higher and yung lower group. So, proceeding on with the step number 2. Obtain the proportion correct for each item. Meaning to say, sa lahat ng sa mga items na yon, tignan mo kung ilan yung tama. For example, sa item number 1 natin, dalawa yung tumama sa higher performers, tapos walang tumama sa lower performers. So, kailangan mong, kailangan mong kunin kung ilan yung tumama doon sa item na yon. Kaya nga, di ba, nung high school tayo, nung nag-item analysis pa tayo, ilan ang tama sa 1? So, magtataas tayo ng finger natin, or kung 2, 3, yung tumama sa hawak natin mga papel. So, dahil ito yung purpose nun, kailangan malaman kung ilan ba yung tumama sa bawat item. So, proceeding on with the step number 3. The item difficulty is obtained by the formula pH. pH means, excuse me, proportion of high group, excuse me. Please forgive me for that. And then, PL means proportion of lower groups or of low group. And you must add them together and then divide it by 2. So, the difficulty is interpreted using this table. So, pagka 0.76 and above, that means madali lang yung item. Okay? Pero, pagka naman 0.25 to 0.75, then that means average lang yung item. Hindi siya masyadong madali, hindi siya masyadong mahirap, it is just right. So, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. However, pagka naman 0.24 or lower yung rating ng lumabas dito sa formula na to, then that means that the item is difficult. So, given that, let us proceed with the step 3.2. So, kung i-compute natin siya, So, sa item number 1 natin, yung value ng proportion of the high group is 0.67. Tapos, yung sa low group naman natin is 0. So, add them together, equals to 0.67 pa rin. Kasi nga, 0 naman yung value ng ating PL. And then, divide that by 2, then we are down to 0.33. So, looking at the table, ano yung magiging remark ng 0.33? So, pasok siya sa average item because average item, ang value nun is 0.25 to 0.75. Meaning to say, hindi siya masyadong mahirap, hindi siya masyadong madali. Item number 1 is just right. So, you will have to do that computation to all other items. So, kung 50 items yan, 50 times mong gagawin yung computation na yun until you find kung saan ba masyadong madali, kung saan ba masyadong mahirap, and kung saan just right yung tanong. So, given that, let us proceed with the step number 4, which is the computing of difficulty. Yes. No, this is the computing of the item discrimination naman, no, because we are already done with the difficulty. So, this is the computation of the item discrimination. So, paano naman natin malalaman yung value ng item discrimination? The formula here is PH minus PL. Kasi di ba kanina, PH plus PL divided by 2. So, dito naman, mas simple lang. PH minus PL. So, ganito mo naman siya i-interpret. Kapag 0.40 and above, that means it is a very good item. Ibig sabihin, walang mali sa item. Very good nga di ba? So, napakaganda ng item mo. Walang mali. Pagka naman 0.30 to 0.39, then it's still a good item. Okay pa rin siya. Okay pa rin siya. However, pagka naman 0.20 to 0.29, reasonable good item. So, dito na pumapasok yung mga may mali-mali na, ganyan. And then, pagka naman 0.10 to 0.19, that is a marginal item. So, dito na nagkakaroon ng difference. Dito na maraming tumatama and maraming namamali. However, pagka naman below 0.10, then it is a poor item. Ibig sabihin, pangit yung tanong mo, may mali sa tanong mo, masyadong mahirap yung tanong mo, or simply, hindi na iintindihan ng student yung tanong mo. So, that means, may kailangan kang baguhin. So, for example, sa item number 1 natin, so pH, ano ba yung value ng pH natin kanina, di ba? 0.67. And then, yung value naman ng PL natin is 0. Kasi nga, walang tumama doon sa mga lower group natin. So, 0.67 minus 0 is equal to 0.67. So, looking at the table, sa kung paano natin i-interpret yung 0.67, it means that the item is, excuse me, that the item is very good. Kasi nga, pag 0.40 and above, that means that the item is very good. So, dito sa item number 1 natin, napakaganda ng item. Walang mali sa item, naintindihan ng mga students, sadya lang na may namamali talaga. So, again, you will do that with the rest of the items. So, kung 50 items yan, kung 40, kung 30, 25, 20, no matter how many items that is, you will have to use this formula and compute the data to be able to know kung meron bang discrimination na nagaganap sa item or sa test natin. So, those are the process of computing the value of item difficulty as well as the value of item discrimination. Again, in my last slide, here are the importance of item analysis. As a matter of fact, this is the same as the benefits of the item analysis, but I would like to reiterate this. I would like to give emphasis to this because as an educator, it is very important and it is very vital for us to learn about this because this can help us in our job and this can also help the students with their studying and with their learning. So number 1, it determines how difficult the item is. Kasi nga, the reason for this is because hindi dapat masyadong mahirap yung item. Why is that? Bakit? Di ba yung mga teachers ngayon masyadong pahirap, gusto nila nahihirapan yung student. But the item should not be too difficult kasi pagka masyadong mahirap yung item, that can result to students being frustrated. Ma-frustrate sila, isipin nila ang tanga-tanga nila kasi hindi nila maitama yung tanong, masyadong mahirap yung tanong para sa kanila. But on the other hand, it should not be too easy as well. Because that will result for students to be boastful. Nagmamalaki sila. Let's say, for example, hindi siya nag-review but then he got 45 out of 50, let's say. So, magyayabang siya. Alam mo, hindi ako nag-aral pero ang taas ng marka ko. So, that can result to their loss of motivation. Hindi na sila mamomotivate na mag-aral or mag-review kasi nga, kahit naman hindi sila nag-review, mataas yung nakuha nilang score. So, again, the item should not be too difficult nor too easy. It must be just right. It must be average because too difficult or too easy can provide a negative result to students. So, number 2, it helps avoid item discrimination kasi nga, hindi naman lahat ng student natin ay same in terms of understanding, in terms of absorbing knowledge, absorbing information. Hindi naman lahat yan pantay-pantay. So, kailangan ma-determine natin kung saan ba nagkaroon ng item discrimination para magawa natin ng paraan. Kasi kung hindi natin gagawa ng paraan, napaka-unfair para sa mga na-discriminate na student. Kasi, minsan, yung tanong, meron lang mga words na nakakalito. Merong mga words na mahirap intindihin, like for example, exacerbating. So, hindi naman lahat ng student alam kung anong ibig sabihin ng exacerbating. So, kailangan ma-determine natin kung saan ba nagkaroon ng item discrimination. That way, again, it will bring us to the third importance or to the third benefit of item analysis, which is it opens an opportunity for educators to revise the item. Once nalaman natin na masyado palang madali or masyado palang mahirap yung tanong or kung na nagkaroon pala ng discrimination sa tanong, then that will provide an opportunity for us na i-revise yung ating item. Because revising that item, that might result to higher scores of student. And di ba ang sarap sa feeling pagka isa kang educator, isa kang teacher, isa kang guro, nagtuturo ka and mataas yung grades, mataas yung rating, mataas yung scores ng students mo. Di ba napakasarap sa pakiramdam nun? And it will also affect the students kasi nga, again, as I've said, pagka masyadong madali yung tanong, hindi sila na-challenge. Pagka masyadong challenging yung tanong, na-frustrate sila and that might lead to their depression minsan. Kasi yung ibang estudyante masyadong dinidibdib pagka hindi nila maitama yung tanong. So, again, those are the process, the definition, and the benefits and importance of item analysis. So, thank you all for listening. I hope you learned something from this. As always, God bless you and God bless the Philippines.